The chair at the attorney's office stayed empty. On Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, at 10 a.m., Nancy Guthrie was scheduled to walk into a law office in Tucson, Arizona, to revoke a power of attorney and amend her will. Court-adjacent records confirm the appointment. She never arrived. 124 days have passed since Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home in the Catalina foothills. And federal sources now indicate investigators are deploying new analytical tools against evidence already collected. But the question that reframes everything isn't what was taken from that house. It's what Nancy had already set in motion 38 days before she disappeared, and why someone needed those 96 hours to never arrive. If you want every verified development in this case as it moves, stay with the coverage. Nancy Guthrie was born January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She married Charles Guthrie in 1963. After Charles died suddenly in 1988, Nancy raised 4 children alone in the Catalina foothills house she'd lived in since 1973. For 38 years, she managed every account herself. No financial advisor, no family member with unsupervised access. Then, at some point, she granted power of attorney to her son-in-law, Tommaso Chioni, her daughter Annie's husband. The legal instrument authorizing him to pay bills, move money, leverage property. In early January 2026, court-adjacent records indicate Nancy began auditing his decisions. Statements printed, lines marked in pen. 3 friends later told the FBI she'd phoned them across 3 weeks. Phrase 1, "I don't understand some of these charges." Phrase 2, decisions she hadn't fully approved. Phrase 3, "I think I need to talk to my lawyer." A progression, quiet, lateral, building. Verification remains pending on the specific transactions Nancy identified. Investigators have not disclosed them publicly, and that silence is itself a signal. But the evidence everyone was focused on, the masked figure at the door, wasn't where this case actually starts. By the last week of January, Nancy had booked the appointment, Tuesday, February 3rd, 10 a.m. 2 items: revoke the power of attorney granted to Tommaso Chioni and amend her will. The attorney's calendar logged it. Investigators have it. Here is the procedural arithmetic. Power of attorney in Arizona presumes consent for every transaction made under it. Revocation flips that presumption. A forensic accountant gets appointed. Every withdrawal, every investment movement, every line of equity drawn against the Catalina foothills property, assessed at roughly $800,000, fully paid off, gets examined. The question shifts from, was this authorized, to who benefited? If the answers come back wrong, Arizona's elder financial abuse statutes are not discretionary. The forensic accountant does not decide whether to refer. The law decides. Elder financial abuse here is a felony, not a fine, not probation, prison. February 3rd at 10 a.m. was the moment that cascade began. Saturday, January 31st, Nancy drove to her daughter Annie's house for dinner. Tommaso Chioni was at the table, the man whose legal authority over her finances she was 96 hours from terminating. She ate with him nearly 2 hours. At 7:40 p.m., she stepped away from the table. She called her attorney's office, knowing it would be closed, and left a voicemail. FBI technicians recovered 3 fragmented phrases from degraded audio. Important change. Not comfortable. Tomorrow. She wanted to move the meeting from Tuesday to Sunday, from the relative safety of 3 days out to the next morning. Whatever she'd found in those statements between booking the appointment and that Saturday evening Tuesday had become too far away. She left the voicemail from inside Tommaso Chione's home. Then she went back to the table and finished dinner. Every witness afterward used the same word: normal. 4 hours of it. Nancy let Tommaso drive her home. 9:48 p.m., he walked her into the Catalina Foothills house. 9:50 p.m., the garage door closed. For the next 3 hours and 57 minutes, no outgoing calls, no texts, no security alerts. The house went quiet. Then the doorbell camera captured its final frame. 1:47 a.m., February 1st. A masked figure wearing a backpack approaches the front door, reaches up, and taps the lens twice with a gloved finger, checking transmission. Then pulls leaves from a nearby potted plant and covers the camera. Seconds later, the device disconnects. Tapping is not a nervous habit. Covering with organic material rather than breaking the device is not convenience. That is operational thinking. And the FBI has confirmed the same camera had captured someone approaching the porch on at least one previous occasion, days, possibly weeks earlier. The property had been mapped. The approach had been rehearsed. The camera angles had been studied. And then, on the night Nancy was 96 hours from revoking that document, here's the question worth sitting with. Was the visitor on Nancy Guthrie's porch the night of February 1st a stranger who happened to select an 84-year-old woman the night before her appointment, or someone who knew exactly which 96 hours mattered? Drop your read below. 2:12 a.m. A second security camera on the property logged a motion alert. The device wasn't recording video. Nancy hadn't paid for cloud storage, but the timestamp survived. Someone was on the property 25 minutes after the front camera went dark. 2:28 a.m. Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker logged a disconnect event. The medical device implanted in her chest, designed to transmit data continuously to her cardiologist, stopped detecting signals from her body. Either the device was physically separated from her, or her heart stopped producing electrical activity the device could track. The pacemaker data has not yet been publicly interpreted as a cause of death determination. That distinction matters. 41 minutes. No forced entry, no broken windows, no primarks on locked surfaces. Whoever came through that door either had a key or Nancy opened it. DNA on the porch confirmed as hers. Dr. Michael Baden's documented analysis of the droplet pattern, consistent with and indicative of an abduction in progress. A trail running from the front door toward the street. Her purse, wallet, and phone remained inside. The living room undisturbed. No drawers opened, nothing searched. This was not a burglary. 2 male DNA profiles recovered, one from inside the house, one from a glove discarded 2 miles from the property. Neither matches the federal criminal database. Both are now being processed through investigative genetic genealogy, the same methodology that identified Joseph James DeAngelo as the Golden State Killer more than 40 years after his crimes. An Ozark Trail backpack matching the masked figures was purchased at Walmart with cash, no loyalty card. Cash indicates awareness of paper trails. Buying at Walmart indicates these are not trained operatives. That combination, careful where they could be, careless where they didn't anticipate, is not the profile of a professional operation. It is the profile of people with motive and local knowledge under time pressure. Federal sources indicate investigators are applying AI-assisted signals analysis, cell site data, ad tech mobile app data, automated license plate readers, Arizona DOT traffic cameras, Sonoran Desert preservation cameras, video from neighboring homes and businesses. The objective? Identify vehicle and device patterns consistent with pre-reconnaissance activity. Lessons drawn by analysts familiar with the methodology from DARPA's Gorgon Stare program, loitering high-definition video used to trace IED vehicles backward through time. The masked figure took the doorbell camera, not to disguise themselves, to disguise the vehicle. Reports now indicate Savannah Guthrie has committed hundreds of thousands of dollars of her own funds to private investigators. Verification remains pending on the specific scope, but the family's deployment of independent resources at the 120-day mark is itself a procedural signal. They are not waiting. The case appeared to stall through March, through April, through the 2 raids, Rio Rico near the Mexican border, and a second residence within miles of Nancy's home that produced detentions, lawyers, and ultimately no charges. Innocent people, wrong doors. The investigations seemed to be running cold. Then Puma County Sheriff Chris Nano stated publicly, "We are definitely closer." Definitely is not a hedging word. A sheriff speaking on the record about an active federal investigation uses that word when the structure supports certainty. Multiple labs, plural. A rootless hair recovered from inside the Catalina Foothills house. DNA extraction from a rootless hair requires a small number of specialist laboratories nationally. Combined with the investigative genetic genealogy work on the 2 unidentified male profiles. If a single third cousin of either man has submitted DNA to a consumer ancestry service in the last decade, the family tree is already being built. The branches are already narrowing. And what that means for the person whose financial exposure Nancy was 96 hours from making permanent. Federal prosecutors conducted a documented walkthrough of the Catalina Foothills house before it was returned to the family. Kidnapping is a federal offense. Their presence indicates a case structure being built toward trial, not merely an investigation being managed. Here is the strategic gap former federal prosecutor Ted Diabasi has identified, drawing on 2 decades of nobody homicide prosecutions. The absence of a wide area ground search around Nancy Guthrie's known locations is a prosecutorial vulnerability. Not because finding remains is the only goal, because at trial, the prosecution must affirmatively rule out alternative explanations, that Nancy walked away, that she came to harm by accident, that the masked figure left and someone else acted. Documented, thorough searching is the shield against those defenses. The United Cajun Navy has publicly offered drone, canine, and aerial assets and confirmed they could mobilize within 72 hours. The offer remains, per their statement, open. Nancy's pacemaker continued logging heart data until 2:28 a.m. on February 1st. Recovering Nancy is the only mechanism by which that data and the cause of death determination it could enable becomes accessible. The structural weakness in what happened in that house is arithmetic. 2 DNA profiles, 2 people who know what happened in the 41 minutes between 1:47 a.m. and 2:28 a.m. 2-person secrets have a half-life. The first to cooperate with federal investigators in an operation like this gets the reduced sentence. The second absorbs the full weight. That is not speculation. That is documented federal practice. The same procedural architecture broke open the Long Island serial killer case against Rex Heuermann. Not DNA first, but task force reanalysis of vehicle data combined with cell site records, which then produced the lead, which then produced the DNA match from a discarded pizza crust. The methodology now being applied to Nancy Guthrie's case is the same methodology. The next scheduled procedural milestone in this investigation, per Sheriff Nanos's public posture, is the anticipated release of laboratory results from the multiple labs currently processing the recovered samples, expected to drive the next investigative phase within days, not weeks. A $1 million reward sits unclaimed. The FBI tip line is 1-800-CALL-FBI. Information can be submitted anonymously. If this case matters to you, the next development is one you will not want to miss. Whether the specific transactions Nancy Guthrie identified in those bank statements, the ones she described to 3 separate friends across 3 weeks in January, were ever entered into the sealed evidentiary record, and what they showed about who benefited, is a question the public filings have not yet answered.